Welcome everyone. As we let people sign in, we're and slowly admit people. We're just going to share some opening questions that we invite you to all go to. You have three options. You can go to the link, which is in the chat. You can also go here to menti.com and enter the code. You can also, with your phone, just scan this QR code and do it from your phone. But we have just some nice opening questions to get us a sense of who is here, what's the mood, what questions and thoughts you're bringing. So go ahead and fill out some of the questions, and we'll show some results in a moment. And enjoy the music. And I'll just repeat this a few times as people are coming in. As we have people trickling in, let's see in the, we'll just be sharing it over and over again in the chat so that you all have a chance to, that those who are new are able to see it. But I'm inviting people to go to this Mentimeter opening, I don't want to call it, it's not a poll, it's not a questionnaire, what should we call it? What do you think? Like that? What would you call it? It's like setting the mood, getting to know each other. We'll see in a moment. But you have the option to go to the link in the chat. You can go to menti.com, enter the code. You can also, if you want to use your phone, just scan this QR code and it'll open up for you. So we can go forward and start to see what some people are saying. So it's a bit of a representation of where people are calling from, which is nice. This is one of our earlier for us, but one of our few festival events we've had earlier. So it's nice to see that we have people coming from Asia, because a lot of our events are later, and we've made it a bit exclusive for some of you. So it's nice to see the diverse representation here. And then let's see what people are saying about when we hear community weaving, what comes to mind. So meeting people, connecting. Communities of care, nice. Finding ways to connect, compassion. So this is really about connections, relationships. I know Amy has a lot to say about that. Okay, Marta, you want me to put my voice down just a second, or put my music down? Is that a little bit better, Marta? Does that work better? Okay. Let's see what else people are saying. And just in case anybody has signed in and you don't have the link to this chat, we're filling in some questions here. What would you like to take away? We have 5 people who've written here so far. What practices are new perspectives, the idea of community discussion, tips, different ways that bring people together, okay, perspectives from the other side of the world. Interesting, nice. Today, would you rather dance or sing? We ask this at every festival, and be careful, because we'll hold you we'll hold you to it. So dance, if you say dance, it's probably gonna make you, it'll be like 30 seconds, but we're gonna make you feel a little bit awkward and move your bodies a little bit, because we want to play. Our idea is to play together. So I'm gonna let you continue filling that out, and you should be able to see the answers as you're filling it out, but you came here not to listen to me and to instead hear some other people. I want to just take a quick moment to share what the festival is and why we're here. Some of you, this might be your first festival event. Some of you might have been to other ones. I see at least one person I know was at the other event. We're going to show a quick 2-minute video, because that's faster than me speaking. And what I invite you to do is, as you're watching the video, is just to share in chat something that you read.
If you want to change the world,
let me just pause it and just say that again, just in case it wasn't clear. So something that you resonated with when you were watching this video, just share it in the chat so we can see a bit of kind of how you're all coming to this conversation. So enjoy.
If you want to change the world, throw a better party.
Addressing complex issues requires radically changing the way we work together.
We believe networks are the incredible invisible forces with the potential to reshape our world.
Thousands exist around the globe.
They drive deep change across education, jobs, equity,
climate, agriculture, biodiversity,
migration, health, and so on.
There are so many groups, so many communities of practice, so many local ecosystems, so many alumni associations.
Networks are very powerful in creating a sense of belonging and also connection.
The cross-pollination of energy, of positivity and encouragement.
People can understand each other's interests, find their intersections, and work together on what matters to all of them.
But so many times, networks are underfunded.
Despite their norm-breaking approaches to social change, they are highly misunderstood.
For most, how to do this amazing work is a little bit of a mystery.
And we need to change that.
There's an incredible wealth of knowledge and lived experience on how networks can and do change our world.
That's why, across the month of May 2023, we will bring together thousands of network leaders,
Funders, conveners, companies, and governments to deepen our understanding of how to drive social change through networks.
To learn together, to share together.
Try out new practices, new ideas.
And we will play.
Some of the most impactful social change happens when people have fun together.
We need to deploy the knowledge and the wisdom, the collaborative power to create magic that will make our world a better place.
We'd love you to join us.
Will you join us?
See you there.
Everyone, really wonderful to have you here from the world. If you don't mind, could you just please
Sorry, did you guys hear that? Could you hear Beverly talking? It was very confusing. YouTube sent me to another video that was a recording of my colleague opening, and I thought she was doing it here. I was very, very confused for a second. I'm going to turn it over to Marta in just a second, and who will guide us through today's conversation all about communities and weaving, and introduce us to our wonderful speakers. I just want to say very quickly, we're really happy to have you all here, and we're really welcome. We welcome you all. Thanks, Nadia, for writing in the chat. If anybody else wants to write something that resonated with you from the video. And we invite you to turn on your videos if you can, if you don't have connection issues, so we can see your lovely faces. And we will share some more links about the rest of the festival and other ways you can engage with both all the different types of activities that we're doing and during this month and beyond. But for now, I'm going to be quiet and let you listen to all the other wonderful people who are here.
Hi, everyone. Very good to see such a big group coming together for this session for our bonfire circle. Welcome. And my name is Marta. I will have the fun and pleasure to help facilitating today's session. And there will be 4 speakers with us today at this session. And it would be great, Brandon, if you could spotlight them so I don't see just myself on the screen, because that is awkward. Hi, welcome. So we will engage in a small bonfire circle format, which I'm sure all of you had the experience of the bonfire circle, where people just engage in a conversation, share thoughts, ideas, experiences, examples. And this is what we are planning to do here today. And we will kick off with a little dinner table style conversation where our 4 speakers will share initial thoughts and ideas on the leading question of today's event. And today we are going to talk in general about communities don't just happen. And I had the opportunity to already exchange with our speakers a bit before about this, and I think there is a lot of interesting insights coming up. How we will structure the session a bit is that the dinner table conversation is a very informal, very natural format, which means that we will encourage all of our speakers to unmute. And if you don't mind, it would be great if you do it just now. It creates always a little bit of awkwardness on the Zoom, right? Because we are used to having just one person speaking. But at the dinner table, usually there are multiple voices coming over each other, and we want to create that feeling. So Ken, Akfazi, that's okay for you to also unmute yourselves. It's completely fine if sometimes two of you start speaking together. We will figure it out. It will feel more natural that way anyway. And as for our audience, during the dinner table conversation, we would like to encourage you to already have some reflections, comments, and questions. But we wouldn't want you to just post them in the chat throughout the dinner table conversation, but rather keep it for the moment when we specifically tell you now. And this is when we will have a little chatterfall in the chat, and our speakers will be able to read through it, reflect, and then address your comments. If everybody is feeling comfortable, we can start our dinner table conversation. And we have this initial question that you surely also saw on the website, which is, what are the important hidden roles of official and unofficial community weavers to spark collaboration and connection? So let's just talk about communities that don't just happen. Anybody feeling like starting? Please go ahead. If not, I have a person in mind who would like to ask.
I'm happy to jump in. So hi, I'm Imi from the Relationships Project based in the UK. And I think over the COVID pandemic, so the last few years, we really learned a lot about the hidden work of community weavers. And I think what we saw here in the UK, and I'm sure in lots of other countries, is that where relationships already existed within communities, so amongst neighbours and also between communities and local voluntary sector organisations and the local government, the response in terms of the kind of community support, the shopping for people who couldn't leave their homes, picking up medicines for people who were isolating, that response was a lot quicker and a lot more effective in communities where that weaving had already happened. So I think for us, it was a real kind of eye-opener to show how and why this hidden work is so important in sort of preparing us for bad times, as well as helping us to make the most of the good times.
Yeah, I would like to take it from the angle of where communities historically have emerged from. I mean, I take the case of Ghana, for instance. Communities were very well knitted, institutions, individuals who lived together and at every point had a common purpose and a collective desire to achieve specific things for the benefit of the community. But over time, and as a result of Christianity, modernization, the building of formal political institutions and other things, we've almost like have seen the disintegration of these well-knit communities over time. And so in responding to this, there is now the need to build these communities back into what they probably used to be, in terms of they having a collective vision and have collective interests and concerns, and how they will work together to achieve specific common goals that are in their interest. And that therefore will require some level of skills, which would, it would include people, local weavers, external weavers, and weavers who really understand the different dynamics of these new and emergent communities, so that we create trustful relationships among them. You create a vision that would help direct the way in which they would work together and have collective responsibility towards achieving the specific goals that they now have. So that, for me, has been the work that we have been doing, and more specifically, we are aiming towards building schools. And when I say building school systems, that will benefit these communities that we've been working with.
Mm. Yeah, I probably would want to add also generally about communities and how they come to be. So some communities are intentionally formed and some are not. For example, you be born into a community or into a family, you have no choice of belonging to that, and you are part of that community. And that also speaks to how communities are sustained or propagated through shared values, cultures that people build. There is a form of identity that people do have, and the relationships. So there are really forces that make people come together. Some of the forces are intentional, like shared interests. Some of them are not intentional at all. But these are things that create relationships between people, which determine how strong that community is, depending on the bond between individuals in the community. But what's building from what Akwasia said about this integration of communities is also that communities can die, they can disintegrate and collapse, but they can also get very strong. So it's also important for us to really understand how do we nurture and strengthen the communities that we are in, and how do we cultivate that? And I see that as one of the key roles of official or unofficial community weavers, people who make these communities work. From forming them, from just making sure the bonds that keep the community together are strong and are propagated over time. So yes, I think I'll just stop there for now.
Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Wei Jie. I work with Teach for All and I work with community of practices in Teach for All. I really like the topic today about communities. I think the way I see communities is like it is fueled, right, by three quite big things. One is like people, one is like the relationships of people, and the third one is like purpose, right? It's the purpose of the community. Are people getting what they want from the community? And the way that I see the question, which is like communities don't just happen, it's like, these three things don't just fall into place all the time. And the role of the community weaver is to be able to weave these three fields together, kind of like the engineer of all of these things together to make magic happens. And I think as I do this community weaving role, the longer that I do it, the more that I see it's like, your role is not just like in the beginning. I think a lot of times people think that your role is to seed these things at the beginning, but the sustainability of the community, is also something that is within the locus of the community weaver.
And I think that that idea of kind of shared purpose and shared values is so important in building and maintaining communities. And we're really interested in not just how you build communities who already sort of share those values or those identities, but also how you build bridges between communities who maybe don't initially see themselves as having common values and a shared sense of identity. So I think a lot of the work of community weavers is also in building those bridges, in helping to share stories between communities, to have two different communities to see actually what they do have in common. So to appreciate the strong foundations and the strong identities that they have, and to hold firm to those identities, but then to draw out what they have in common and see what their sort of shared needs and shared goals are. Because without strong bridges between communities, we end up with kind of differences and divides which can escalate and turn into conflict. So I think we need to think about those bonded communities, but also bridged communities as well.
Yeah. And basically, what this means is that the essence or the role of the weaver is to bring together people from diverse cultural, sometimes religious interests, and the role of the weaver is to see how you can connect all these different people with the different backgrounds into a collective unit that would lend together and build systems together, build relationships together, build trust together. And therefore, this will require that we provide information. Sometimes we provide training, we provide resources, and continuously helping this community of diverse people focus on the shared values that they have, a shared interest that they have, because that is the only way in which you can continuously build this community and strengthen it. And the more important, the more you do this, the more you begin to build trust between them, because the key element of a strong community is the level of trust that exists within these people with diverse interests and diverse cultural backgrounds, religion, and everything. There's a need to strengthen the level of trust that would exist, because that is the only way you can sustain the relationships and the networking that people start developing as they build this community.
I would like to offer, Amy, go for it.
No, you go. I was going to ask a question, so you go.
Oh, okay. I would like to offer two things, which is I just love what Amy mentioned earlier on about storytelling. And I feel like a very key role of a community weaver is definitely the storytelling element. And I feel like it's, with storytelling, I think it's not just only like telling what is the impact of the community, but to be able to also like spotlight what connections are also happening within the community, be able to celebrate these connections and make these connections visible so that people can see that, oh, this community is like alive and breathing. So I would say like that's one thing which I feel is a very key action of a community weaver. And the second thing that came into my mind is definitely like thinking about how do we position the community in a way that allows for people to feel like, oh, this is a community that I can gain something from. So something that really helps me is like thinking about the word value proposition. What is the value proposition for people within the community, whether it's like the volunteers, the leaders of the community, or the members as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Tan. I can just add on that, and I think what you mentioned about storytelling, I feel we really need to learn storytelling as well, because the history is what gives the community identity and that sense of knowing, what's the basis, or how did this community come to be and what it is. And thinking about that also, we mentioned something about designing a community or defining it, and just how much control we have as weavers or facilitators in a community. We can draw a picture of how the community looks like, but we can't tell how the community will be like. So it's important to also just know, we don't have much of a say or a control on how the community is going to turn out to be like, but we do have the role of, just strengthening it as a community and making sure that it works. And I think that's important. You mentioned trust, Akwasi, which is really important. And sometimes these vocabularies do come out, like network weaver. So we could have a trust worker in a community. There are people who, they just build trust in the community by facilitating flow of information from one place to another. And they are not formally recognized, but they actually do that. They when they see that there's a problem somewhere, they go, they restore normalcy where there's conflict. Nobody appoints them. They don't know what they're called, but they do it. So it's also just appreciating the diversity of what each one brings and what their role is there, even though the role might not have a name. How do we, as people who facilitate work in the community, encourage such people to feel proud of what they're doing? Because it can be challenging as well.
And basically, we are not, by this glowing celebration of weavers and communities, saying that, there aren't conflicts that would have to be addressed. I mean, from time to time, you hit the wall with some way in which you want to strengthen this idea of community belonging. And so it is important to take that into account so that we all know that we would face some challenges, some roadblocks here and there. But I think what has been very instrumental in my case, working at the community level and the subnational level to build learning ecosystems among communities, is the fact that we celebrate our successes together. We celebrate our achievements together. We celebrate the progress that we make together. So it continuously and in an ongoing way helps people to focus on what brings them together, what is common among them. And that for me is one way in which you are reflecting on the trust that needs to be built among yourselves. Because if you recognize and acknowledge that in our collective, within our collective effort, our collective responsibility, this is how far we've come, this is what we've achieved, then in other words, you're saying that if we stay together, if we stick together, we can go this far. And that for me has been the continuous way in which I build trust among the people, with diverse interests, diverse religious and cultural beliefs, and focus on what is common among them. And that for me was one of the ways in which we celebrate our successes and move forward. Yeah.
And I think that celebration is so important. And Tan, I think it was so interesting how you brought in this idea of value proposition. And I think, I often wonder, what is a value proposition for a community weaver? It's, as so many of you on this call will know, it's hard work being a community weaver. It can feel lonely. It can be really difficult. And I think celebrating those successes and having a support network around you is so important as well. We've heard from a number of community weavers how important it is to have almost a small advisory group who you can go to sense check your kind of thinking or your ideas, or go to when things aren't going right. But then that idea of like celebrating achievements as well is, I think, really important fuel to carry on sort of stoking the fire of community weavers, because as I say, it can be a difficult and lonely job.
And frustrating sometimes.
There's a Malaysian saying. It's called I'm just gonna type it in the chat. It's called "Syok sendiri." Sendiri. Syok basically means it's like, you're just like having fun. Sendiri basically means yourself. And I feel like a huge role of like the community weaver is like, being able to syok sendiri, and at the same time sort of like draw people towards the cause. Yeah.
Maybe one question I do have for all of you is, should formal community weavers be paid for that, or should it be everybody's work? Should it be somebody's work or everybody's work? I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, let me probably share the experience that I have. Some of these reconstruction of communities, the effort to reconstruct communities, and especially from my experience, where we are focusing on education, helping communities redirect their energies and their desire to provide their children with quality education, will require some formal arrangements that would specifically put a weaver within a community to help facilitate, to help redefine the purpose for which everybody needs to work together. And so this idea of reconstructing communities sometimes will require some resources in terms of getting a paid weaver, if you want to put it that way. But what I have learned over the years is that as we journey through this process of reconstructing communities and providing opportunities for creating a shared vision and bringing people together and celebrating the successes together. What we see mostly is that you begin to have leaders emerging from these communities, people who want to take responsibility for the collective achievement, the collective interest, and we have created a number of these people who voluntarily would like to be part of this process because they see the collective good that is to the benefit of the community. And as a result of that, throughout the communities where we've done this program, we found independent, selfless people coming up to us and saying, I want to continue to be part of this process. I want to contribute. In what way can I be part of this? And that has helped in strengthening the whole idea, the network system that has been created. And for me, that is one way in which we can achieve what I call the social maintenance of building communities. Because if you have a paid person weaver in the community, the person can be there forever. So as you create these leaders within, we call them change leaders. And in our way, we build their capacity, we help them understand the skills that they would need to facilitate the continuous conversation and dialogue among these different stakeholders. And as a result of that, they become the faces of what needs to be achieved by each of these communities. And so that is very, very important to look at, you know, the sustainability of the processes that is being created, you know.
Thank you so much.
Question.
Martin, no, if you have a short comment, then you go ahead. I would just like to maybe already give an audience a hint that we will be soon receiving your comments and your questions in the chat. Then we will give speakers a moment to read through them as well and to think about what they would like to respond. And that can happen in just a minute, but Tan, please go ahead and share your last thoughts.
Oh, I was just gonna say I really love Ken's question. My thought as of where I am right now is that it's theoretically everyone's work, and at the same time, everyone's work is your work. So that's kind of like the way that I see it. And I think like the truth is that quite a number of like community engagement does require like some support or like, you know, need of engineering, and it really depends on where the community is at, right? But I think like some like things that I can think of about like how, you know, like everyone's work turns into my work is like I do find like at some of the more early stage communities that we have, perhaps like might be like seeding questions with people, right? Or like, you know, like finding out from people, oh, there are such answers, then sort of like seeding people. It's like, hey, that person asked this question, perhaps you can answer something like that. So engineering some of these things can be really helpful.
Thanks, Tan. Well then, dear audience, please feel free to add your comments or questions, any reflections, thoughts on the topic that we have just spoken about in the chat. Brandon will play some relaxing music. We will have a few minutes for that. And then our speakers will react to what you added. Okay, I think we can be slowly coming back to the room, and the classical music brought us into relaxation mode. But as we are at the dinner table, you know, the dinner tables usually are loud and fun, and people chat and they throw things around if there are children especially. So I would like all of us, if you can, open your cameras just for this little moment, so we all look a bit goofy and silly and fun, and like we are actually sitting at this dinner table together. And I would like you to imitate some movements that you would do at the dinner table if you're sitting with your family and friends. So think about something. It doesn't have to be serious or formal or anything. Just, you know, bringing this fun into the room, maybe using this moment also to stretch a bit because we've been sitting for 40 minutes. So feel free to just, we don't have to talk about this. So feel free to do whatever you would like to. And just, yeah, let's do it together. what would you do at the dinner table with your family and friends? Yeah, I love that. I love how Maria is stretching at the dinner table. This is great. Oh, and then we have some sounds as well. That's awesome. Okay, lovely. I hope you had a moment to at least stretch a tiny little bit. This way we all came to the dinner table. And now it's the time for our speakers to respond to what you have seen in the chat. And again, please feel free to just speak whenever you feel you want to bring something in, be it a comment, an answer, whatever it is. And I think we will be spotlighted again by Brendan.
Okay, let me take a question that has come to me specifically, saying that what is your experience of the funding support available to facilitate the transmutation from the traditional education structures towards a humanized and humanizing learning ecosystem model in Ghana? I mean, this practically is what I have been focused on for many years, trying to move communities into a place where they collectively work together towards improving their education system. In other words, building a learning ecosystem that brings together various stakeholders from different backgrounds, religion, culture, and everything, to focus on the one thing that guarantees the future of their children. And it is important to understand that because it is related to education, there are several opportunities where you need to you can source funding, basically. And one of the things that we have been successful at doing is partnering with the Jacobs Foundation in from Switzerland that also believes strongly in this idea of building learning ecosystems. And so based on that effort, we conceptualize the idea of working through the formal education system, but redefining the purpose of external stakeholders with a common vision to providing quality education for the children. And therefore, the essence of community is just not the geographical space where people live or where the school is, but it attracted various external, let me call them external stakeholders, who have an interest in the school. And specifically, it even includes the public system, and that is the government system, the political system, because everybody sees the school as a unit that can define or redefine the progress that the community can make. And that would have an impact nationally, because we are training the next generation of young people to be part of the national transformation agenda. And so you begin to see the complexity and the dynamic relationship that needs to be built between local communities, external stakeholders, and even the government system, with a view to all working together to achieve a common purpose. And this sometimes presents some level of challenges in terms of, if you like, responsibilities, in terms of power and control, because while the public system and politicians and all the high-level public officers who are part of the delivery of education feel much more empowered in terms of their ability to influence and control the discussions, it becomes the role of the weaver to now create a much balanced platform to allow every voice to be heard, and opening up the doors for traditionally those whose voices are not heard or whose voices are not respected to now begin to contribute to the dialogue around the improvement of the education system. And that, for me, is the greatest thing that I have seen transforming school systems and transforming children's learning, because there is now a common respected platform where, irrespective of hierarchy, you continue to make the same. You continue to make your voice heard, practically, and using the dialogue to build a stronger system that will deliver quality education. That for me is one of the things that I feel whatever we've done in Ghana in terms of creating learning ecosystems has achieved. So now we have respect for local voices. We have respect for parents. We have respect for people who previously have no role to play in education, now contributing and making decisions around how children learn and what they should learn, and how the learning then benefits the children and ultimately benefits the community. Yeah.
Thanks, Akwasi. What are some other reactions? Amy, Tan, Ken, have you seen in the chat anything that you'd like to respond to?
Yeah, maybe I could respond something regarding my experience in Kenya working with alumni networks for schools, mostly public schools. And what I have seen is that, many people are embracing this, but they sort of end up becoming exclusive clubs and, privileged rooms or sessions for people. And it's one of the challenges that I see as a network weaver. And part of this is because, so for example, I would give you most of the low-income people, they would get maybe a scholarship or an opportunity to study. And then they form a community that makes them not really belong to where they came from, because they are now in a different class. And those that they left behind are left in a different class. And I've been really grappling with how do you, make sure that while people maintain their identity within a community, they have things that differentiate them from others, but they still embrace and appreciate, the other people that, were their first community before they came into the second community. So that's one of the challenges that I see. And partly also for those given scholarships, there's a lot of gap that is left in the places. So they form a community that is no longer place-based, but it's now, people scattered all over the globe or all over the country with a shared identity, but they have neglected sort of their homeland in a way. And we've been trying to see how to remedy that by encouraging people to really go back to their homes and network there and gel there. I don't know, this is just part of life, where you go back to the village, you only find retired people, old people, but most of the productive people are disconnected in a way. So that's one of the challenges that I have come across. The other challenge is a challenge of leadership in communities, especially when it comes to transitions and the disruptions that may cause. So the aspect of individual power within a community and how people express that really, has effects on a community. So as a weaver, just balancing people's individual sense of power and group sense of power to appreciate the diversity within is a challenge that I see as a network weaver. And sometimes you do it by just, having conversations like we are having right now and people being open and honest about this. But it's a difficult thing to tackle. And finally, I don't know whether this is a challenge.
I think we lost you, Ken.
Yeah.
Amy, maybe feel free to jump in. I see you want to. And
I think that that question or that issue of power is also really relevant to one of the questions around the challenges of having a paid worker. I think, and I think a lot of us have mentioned this on this call, community weaving is such an important role, and it's something that really needs to be valued and invested in. But I think there's an interesting question as soon as sort of money enters the dynamic. What does that mean in terms of power and to the power balance? And I guess part of that depends on who's giving the funding, where is that money coming from, and what are the strings that come with that. And I think as soon as the funding for community weaving requires specific outputs, then things can get a little bit messy. And Ken made the point earlier that you can't sort of predict where communities will go or what they will look like, because relationships by their very essence are kind of emergent and unpredictable. So if money enters the equation requiring specific outputs, then that can sort of fundamentally alter the sort of dynamics of a community, I think.
And basically that is why the weaver or the facilitator at this level needs to be a special kind of human being. I mean, it's not everybody who fits into that mold, and you need to demonstrate a certain level of respect. You need to demonstrate a certain level of and have the ability to really connect with people and be almost like be part of that system, and you need to show that, because you need to win the respect of these people you work with. And basically, if you don't go in with that attitude, that sense of wanting to be part of them, and what we call normally in development circles as handing over the stake, and learning from them and opening up to them, you definitely are not going to win their trust. And once you don't win their trust, you would fail as a weaver. And for me, it's quite critical, the entry behavior of the weaver into a community. That for me is very, very important.
Yeah, and thanks. Sorry, I got disconnected while I was speaking, but just to pick up on, I was going to mention just one further challenge, especially for somebody who is hired to be a community weaver for another existing community, especially if you are not a member of that community. So just getting to connect and be accepted, you really have to know how to work your way into being part and parcel of that community, for you to be able to make meaningful connections and work in a meaningful way. So that's really a challenge that for us as community weavers, we need to know how to belong in all the spaces that we are in.
Exactly.
Thank you all for sharing and responding to the chat. I'm looking at the time, and slowly we are coming to the end of the session. I think we were able to reaffirm our intuitive sentence that communities don't just happen, and we have been able to discover a few key elements here. And we talked a lot about relationship and trust, bridge building, sharing values, purpose, respecting diversity, and especially the role of the community weaver and the dynamics that are present in every community. Thank you very much, Imi, Tan, Ken, and Akwazi, for all your inputs and for sharing this time with us and for sharing your experiences. And I will now give it back to Brendan so he can lead us through the closing of this session.
We like to leave a bit of time at the end for person connecting, because we talk a lot about it, and then often we find that we get to the end of the session and we just all say goodbye to each other. So we want to invite you. There's 3 things you can choose to do in the chat. The 3 things I wrote in the chat that you can choose to do, and we'll just put in some background music and share a bit. One is just to send messages to each other. You could do private messages, you could share in the group. If you wish to connect further, if you heard something that you'd like that you want to follow up on. So this is just some time for connecting. The second is to share, there's a second Mentimeter where you can share some takeaways and some next steps. So our hope is that a lot of these conversations will lead to something else and not just be start and stop here, because this work, our experience is it takes years to really understand it and get it and internalize it. And I think even those who are on this call who have been doing it for years still have many questions and challenges that they're facing. So it's an ongoing process. The third is we launched in the opening ceremonies a needs and offers spreadsheet, and we are inviting people to continue filling it in. You'll also find that in the Mentimeter, so you can do that anyway. So I'm just going to put on some music, and I'm going to ask before you sign off, we like to sign off with a mini ritual, which is just saying goodbye, saying thank you and goodbye in your local language. So whenever you want to sign off, if you can stay with us for the next 3 minutes to interact with each other, it'd be great. Thanks for joining. You can start to sign off as you want, because now we're getting towards the end. So thanks, Akwazi.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Hasta luego. Gracias.
Ciao.
Ciao.